when you change yourself, your family and the people close to you are also, proud of you, but inspired to change as well and get the similar results.
Welcome everyone to another edition of the show. Today I have a special guest with us today. Stephanie Taylor is on the show and has a very wonderful story to share with us. Now, Stephanie is a woman whose life blew up in her 40s. After decades of thinking that business and wealth were not necessarily for her, she became an award-winning property investor with a multi-million-pound portfolio, a multi-six-figure business owner, a #1 best-selling author, and a top 1.5% podcast host. Now, in 2021, she was also voted Inspirational Person of the Year by Potential Unlocked with Les Brown. And Stephanie is currently now setting up an accommodation and education trust to help people who struggle to find beautiful, affordable homes like she did as a teenage single mom on benefits. She now lives a life that she never imagined could be possible for her. And her passion is now to also share the message with other women to unlock their desires, see the sparks within them, and blow up their lives over the age of 40. Stephanie Taylor, thank you and welcome to the show.
Afam, thank you for the beautiful introduction. It's amazing to be here. I listen to your podcast, as you know, and I love the work you do. So it's great to be part of it.
Thank you very much. And I know that so much of what you have to say today is going to be so valuable to many of the listeners to the show. I'd like to start off with a little bit about what I touched on in your bio. You've got an established property portfolio. You've got a successful business, and one of your mantras, which I love, is to believe bigger, be bolder, and to be a game changer. However, that wasn't always the case for you. And you've got such a great story, and I would love you to share with the listeners about how you started. And it was very much rooted in family, which is something that's very close to our heart on this show.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. So my journey goes back quite a long way because I just turned 50. So it's gone through hills and valleys, and it's been a twisting road. But basically, why I thought of that, believe bigger, be bolder, be a game changer, is because for such a long time, I didn't believe in myself. I didn't believe that I could believe in a little goal, something that's quite in front of me, like, get a job at a certain salary. I just didn't believe that more was open to me, or that I could have a bigger business, or that I could have a team, or I could build a property portfolio. All of those things seemed beyond what was open to me. And it all started when I became a teenage mum at the age of 18, just a few weeks before my 19th birthday. And I had my son, Alex. And it was certain decisions, my mindset wasn't in a great place, certain decisions that took me to that point. And then once I was there, I just felt a lot of shame and a lot of negative thoughts about myself a lot, but I didn't even realize it at the time because it's just unconscious thinking. I didn't realize you can actually control, or we can actually control what we think. And that's where the first one came from, believe bigger, because the first decision is really an internal decision. It's not that you don't have the money. It's not that you don't have the time. It's not that you don't have, or that other people are stopping you. The first thing is, if you don't believe it, you can't achieve it. If you're not even having the idea, everything that is in your life right now was an idea first. Everything that you have in your person, you have created. So some of those things, you look at them and say, yes, I've created that and I'm really happy about it. And other parts of your life, you might look at and thinking, I've created that and I don't like that result that I've created. So that's why the first part, believe bigger, is so important, because it wasn't until my 40s that my life really blew up in a large way. And it's when I started consciously curating those beliefs and really thinking about my thinking, which sounds so boring, but that's what really created the results. And if there's one message that I would give to people, it's that to really know that you can believe bigger, and that belief will result in different feelings, different actions, and different results. And so it's so important. Be bolder is the second one. And be bolder is because once you believe something, your fear will come up. Once you try, once you start to believe something new, let me clarify, once you start to believe something new, like maybe you start to believe, oh, I could invest in property, for example. And you see that as a horizon, a new horizon for yourself. And you start trying to believe in it. And your brain's going to offer you all of the reasons why it's not going to work, how you could lose money, all of these things that could happen. And you have to work your way through it. And to do that, you have to be bolder. You have to not be worried that you may fail at some parts of this. You will fail at something along the way to your new goal. So you have to be bolder. Other people may criticize you along the way. In fact, the likelihood is people will criticize you along the way, whether you do nothing or whether you live your dreams. So you've got to be okay, be bolder. You've got to be okay to tell people, yes, I'm now investing in property, or I'm now looking for a property, or can you help me find a property, or could you advise me on this aspect of it? And not be concerned if they don't like your ideas, or, I mean, you have to be your own decider. You have to be your own decision maker. You have to honor your own mind and your own brains as much as we often do other people, because we always know what is best for ourselves. So that's the second one, is be bolder. And the third one, be a game changer, is basically when you take all of that power, because it is really power, when you start believing in yourself and your ideas, when you start being bolder and taking action on those ideas, you are a game changer. And the first person's game that you change, if you will, is yourself, because you see, oh my gosh, I can't believe, did you see what Stephanie just did? We didn't even know that Stephanie could roll that way. And you change yourself, you become more confident, because as you start leaning into beliefs that are at the beginning are hard to believe, you keep believing them, you practice believing them, you take the action, you achieve the results. It's so much easier the next time around you do it. So you're a game changer for yourself, for your family see all this happening. Some of the most exciting things that have happened in the last few years. Recently, my mum came to visit. My mum's been very shy about COVID. My mum's going to live for a long time. And she, we think, blessings, I'm hopeful. But she's very worried about corona because, you know, she could catch something and, you know, it could bring things. So she hadn't visited us in Wales for a long time, and she came recently. And, you know, one of the best moments of it, my mum's not really a reader. She's very clever in a practical sense, but she doesn't really read. So she's very proud that we had the book, but she'd never read the book. But she heard that we'd done the audiobook. Well, we'd said we'd done the audiobook. It just didn't occur to me that she would be interested to listen to it. And she was asking us, how can we listen to the audiobook? She's in her 70s. How do I listen to it? How do I get it to my phone? As she knows that, you know, it's all on the smartphones. My son bought her a smartphone, so she knows about it. And my son set up a family WhatsApp group for us. But she listened to it, and do you know, she was so proud of the book, and she was so asking questions about it. And that's something that happens when you change yourself. Your family and the people close to you are also, proud of you, but inspired to change as well and get the similar results. Because my son, I've given rather a long answer, but my son also, when he was young, it was a life of scarcity. I didn't have the mind ability or the financial resources to be able to give him a lot of the things that I would have loved to have given him. So he didn't have things. I was very aware that there was a lot that he didn't have. And we have love. But now we've been able to, my sister and I, as we've learned all about property and investing, share all that with him. In the last few years, he's been able to save up from his, average salary, I would say, and save up to be able to buy his own place, refurbish it, and he's also started stocks and shares investing alongside us. We're all doing it together. And these are the blessings where I say, be a game changer for yourself, for your family, for your community, and for the wider world, as you can gift what you've gained.
That's such an excellent answer that you've given there, Stephanie, because by you becoming that game changer, you've assisted your family on that journey of generational wealth. And the evidence of that we may not see in our day-to-day, but in multiple generations from there. So I totally agree and commend what you've done. And I would say to anyone listening to what Stephanie said, take that on board, because you cannot change your life and the generation around you unless you decide to become that game changer. That's wonderful. Now, because property is something that you've become quite established within, could you share your perspective on why property is an asset class that people should consider towards building generational wealth? And the book that you were referring to is the Rent to Rent Success that you and your sister Nikki have authored, and it's been a successful book in its own right. So could you share your perspective on that, please?
Yeah, well, there's two aspects to it, Afam. So the book Rent to Rent Success is about how to make money from property without buying it. So really it's for people who are beginners and maybe, like I was, don't feel they have the confidence. I just got a copy here. Who don't have the confidence to be able to raise money from other people, or don't have the funds to be able to buy property immediately themselves, but do have more time. Maybe they're working in a full-time job, but they've got some time on the side that they can put into it. And what you can do is set up a different kind of property management business where you can make between 500 and over £1,000 a month managing other people's properties. So that is a fantastic first step for many people. It was the first step for us. And recently I was on Property Insiders with Property by Kazi and Anthony Leville, who are both big developers. And they also started off with rent to rent. But I want to just take a moment to also talk about the other side of property investment, which is where you're buying the assets. This is a very important aspect of it. And I advise, or I encourage anyone who's thinking of starting to make money from property on the rent to rent side to also have as their long-term goal to buy their own assets. And why I think this is really, really important is, one, property is a great business to be in because it's easy to understand. So that's the first thing. There are lots of different business models. And I think for us in the UK, especially, property, everyone talks about property, people know about property, people know people who accidentally became wealthy through property just by buying a house to live in. And over 10, 20, 30 years, it went up dramatically in value. So I think property, first of all, it can be a simple way to start. The next thing I love about property is in the UK as well, we're a small island and property is always in demand. And over the long term, over the 10, 20, 30 years, property is going up. There may be dips in between, but overall, the general trend, if you look at if you look at properties now, and if you look at properties 20 years ago, the general trend is up. And so that's another way. You can make money by the capital appreciation, which is how much the value goes up, which is what we just talked about. But the also really important way, if you're wealth building right now, is you can make cash flow right now. So even if the value of your property never changes, then because you own that property and you're getting paid. So for example, a property that we bought that is in Wales, but you can buy anywhere, including in London. And there are people investing in London with relatively modest amounts of money even now. But ours was in Wales, and it was a house separated into 4 flats. And I was just working out the rental. So it's 1,800 a month, and it's 21,000 a year. Now, for some people, that could be close to a full-time salary for managing, you own that one property. You don't even have to manage it because it's got 4 flats in it. You could let it out to a letting agent or you could manage it yourself. But you don't need to have too many of those before you've actually got a really good income coming in. And after you get the first one and it begins to go up in value, you can release some of that money to buy the next one. So you don't have to save up entirely again for the next one. Or because you've done it before, you can attract other investors who might be family and friends to come in with you, and you can build up yourself together. So there's no reason why anyone can't get started in property if they want to.
It's great what you said earlier. You said that it's a particularly good asset class to be involved with because property is easy to understand. Now, people who have never been involved with property may hear that and say, I'm not so sure about that. So how did you get to a place where you can say that's the case? And also as well, with your particular strategy, the rent-to-rent property strategy that you're quite accomplished in, what is it and how did you eventually develop a 6-step system that has gotten people into property because you've stated it's particularly easy to understand?
Yes. Well, I think that property is easy to understand. What I mean by that is maybe not the complexities, but people can understand the basics. They can see, yes, you can buy a property and yes, it can go up in value. You can get a mortgage that will pay for some of the property. So you only need to put a deposit up front and then the rest of it you pay for ongoing. So I think people can understand those basics and they understand there's rental income and you can make money each month as well. And that's the cash flow. So I think those fundamentals, most of us understand, even if we don't know how to specifically take the steps to do it. And so the rent to rent, what is it? Rent to rent is where you rent a property from a landlord on a guaranteed rent basis. So you pay the owner a guaranteed rent, and you rent the property out to housemates on a higher rent, and you do up the property in between. Sometimes it's a very light refurbishment, and actually sometimes the owner of the property will pay for that refurbishment. And then instead of making, what we do is we usually rent the properties out by the room. So people might know that like being a student house share, where each person has their own bedroom, they're sharing the kitchen and they're sharing bathrooms. And what you can do there is the properties are usually between 5 bedrooms and more, and you can make anywhere between £500 a month and over £1,000 a month. We started doing it, and Afam, how we started was I could see people online and I would go to property events and I would be blown away and think, wow, these people are making all this money from the property. They don't even own the property. That made it seem, well, first of all, wrong. But after a while, I started to think, I looked into it. I saw that it was legal, that you can get contracts to do it, that the landlords would agree to it and the letting agents. Not everyone, but some will want you to do it for them. And I thought, I noticed that people were doing it like shoddily and not very well and cutting corners and not taking care. And I just, after wondering, can I do this? Can I do this? I thought, yes, you can do this. I can do this simply by adding care, just by caring more about the properties, the owners, and the housemates. I could do a better job. And that's how it started out. And as we started, Afam, I'm sure you get the same, that once you start doing something like your wealth building, people start asking, how are you doing this? What did you do? Weren't you working in banking? And then I started telling people just in simple videos and so on, here's the before, here's the after, here's how we made the agreements, here's how we found the properties. And we just developed, my sister and I ran the business together, and we just developed it over time. And we wanted to get it all out into a book format, because not everyone can afford to work with us in the mentorship program but everyone can afford a book. And it was just a way of having that available to anybody who wants it and wants to do this.
That's great. And I liked what you said about adding care. I can see that that was your unique selling point, effectively, that distinguished you from others who have been doing the rent-to-rent strategy. And I also like the fact that you often say that there is an ethical way to make money out of properties you don't own. Now, I've noticed that this theme, ethical business, runs through your philosophy to the point where obviously this past year you were awarded an Inspirational Person of the Year award. So how is that a characteristic that is essential to your business and how you run things?
Yeah, absolutely, Afam. It's so important because what I realized getting older is that money in itself, it doesn't mean anything. It's what you do with the money, what you are with the money, who you become with the money, not just the legacy in terms of when you're gone, but how you can help to educate other people. The person that I've had to become to be able to do what I'm doing now is a different person to the person I was. And let me just give you an example about where ethical comes into it. So what I want is for everyone who works with us, for us, beside us, to have an incredible experience, for it to be a good experience for them. We called our business HMO Heaven. That was our rent-to-rent business because we wanted it to be a heavenly experience for everyone who works with us. Now, recently, we bought a property. So this isn't on the rent-to-rent side. We bought a property and it had 12 flats in it. And there were already some people living in the flats. Now, when we bought it, some of the flats were rented out at £260 a month, which is very low. I know Londoners are like, what? They're quite small studio flats, but even so, that was very low even for Newport. The normal for that type of property should have been £450 a month. So you can see it's almost £200 more per month. So when we bought that property, on paper, what you would say is, you would ask everyone to leave who's paying £260, do the whole refurbishment of the whole place, charge everybody £450, and that's it. When we took it over, we talked to the people who were there, and some of them, Afam, had lived in the property for over 10 years, and they're very happy with the property. They're on a low income, that's why they particularly but they like the property. They don't want to go somewhere else. It's not that they're only living there because they can't go anywhere else. So what we did with those was we put up the rent a little bit, an affordable amount that they can still manage, and we offered, would you like your property refurbished or not, although your rent would go up if you did have it refurbished. And they said no, they would prefer to stay as they are. So we leave those as they are. Their rent will just go up a small amount. So, but it won't be coming up to market rent, for quite some years. And then all of the other ones, some were empty. We did those. Some people moved out just as their normal flow of life, and we've done those gradually. So we've got about 3 people left who are still in that position that I just mentioned to you. But we feel really good about that because that's their home. It's been their home for a long time. It's still everything that we do within our business, it has to work holistically so that I feel good about it, that I'm happy with the work that we're doing. When I go to bed at night, I know that everything that we're doing, it means something to me, because money in itself is not the highest value. It's what we can do with that money and that freedom.
That's great. Now, slightly pivoting here, do you have any thoughts about how this new economic reality that we're in post-COVID has altered how people should view property investing? Because, we can appreciate that some people may be a bit nervous now because things are so unpredictable. What are your thoughts on that?
I think property is one of the most consistent asset classes. So I think when everything's going up and down in COVID, people will always need homes. Especially, we're talking here in the UK, people will always need homes. In most countries in the world, I'm sure it's true, but here it's small and we can't just keep, there's the sea, we're an island. And people are living in smaller and smaller households over the years. So there will always be that demand. So what I think is, as long as you can buy an asset and it will cash flow, i.e., the amount you pay on the mortgage or for the finance costs is lower than the amount you will receive in rent, and you've identified it as a place that people will rent, then you're making money on that property consistently. And then over the long term, from what we've seen from the past and what we predict for the future, the value of your property will also go up. So for me, it's one of the most consistent asset classes, unlike crypto and some other asset classes, which can really have phenomenal returns, but also have really big losses in a short period of time. Property tends to be a longer burn, where it's a longer up or a longer down or a longer plateau. But as long as you don't have to sell your property, if the value does dip, then you don't realize that loss.
That's great. If we now come on to the topic of family. Now, in your book, you and your sister, Nikki, talk about your journey in quite a relatable way. How do you complement each other working together as family? And what advice would you give to family members who are thinking of going into business together?
Wow, yeah, it's so funny, it's so funny, Afam, because before we actually went into business together, we didn't really get on that well. We loved each other. We would obviously have Christmas together and things. And by the end of it, I was like, oh, for heaven's sakes. I did find her very irritating. She's very precise and very detailed. And she also wants to ask a lot of questions. And I think, well, obviously it's this. But Nikki likes to dive into the details. And she also likes to tell you what to do, how to use a frying pan, how to fry your egg, what heat to put it on. This is true, Afam, which frying pan to use, which hobbering to use. As you take it, you can't even do it for yourself because she's going to give you the instructions detailed. But all of those things have been such a blessing within the business, because now there's somebody detailed who will look at all the contracts and do the bookkeeping and assign the right codes to every transaction. Not that she does the bookkeeping, she oversees the bookkeeper and the accountant and our lawyers with all the contracts that we do, whether we're buying a property or whether it's in our rent-to-rent business. So it's so important that we have that partnership. And the most important thing that we've had to learn is how to relate to one another. And the most important among that is honesty, because I think sometimes, especially Nikki, doesn't want other people to feel bad, so therefore won't say. But I think it's really important to say, oh, that made me feel this, or I don't really like it when you do that, or it doesn't mean the other person's got to stop, but at least it's just bringing things out into the open, where you're letting it out like a kettle a little bit. You're not waiting for the whole thing to explode. You're letting each thing out in a small amount. And I think it's so hard, or especially, I don't know if it's especially Brits or living in this country, it's so hard to just say what you really mean and think, but you can do so in a kind and loving way. So that's the most important number one thing that we've now really got open about, saying what we think in a kind and loving way, so that we both know where we stand.
And I'm sure that level of transparency and honesty, which has enriched your relationship, I'm sure that the evidence of that is how your clients view your business, because that's going to shine through in how you operate. And I'm assuming that as time goes on, more and more people see this and they want to be associated with you. And the fact that, again, you've put this term ethical business within your philosophy, I'm sure that complements it greatly.
Yeah, absolutely. And it is great, Afam, that what you just brought up, that's one of the joys of business, isn't it? That when people enjoy working with you, and on HMO Heaven, which is the rent-to-rent management company that we have, on Google, when you Google it, it brings up all these reviews of all the housemates and landlords, and that's such a blessing, because we're no longer day to day in that business. We have a team who run it for us, but again, they run it according to our systems. And one of the systems that we do teach is, I don't know if you've ever had an experience with a letting agent, Afam, if you've ever rented a
Yes.
property. Well, some of them are very dismissive, or they don't take on board this is a common occurrence. If you look at any of the reviews from any letting agents, oftentimes it will say something along those lines. So one of ours is that when Luke, who's our property assistant property manager, is taking the course from the tenants, how we do it, this is how our system says to do it, is listen, understand, and then respond. Because the number one complaint really is that nobody's listening. When a tenant or when a housemate rings you up, really, sometimes they're annoyed, but they've never told you about the problem before. So they're annoyed, they've come home from work, whatever the problem is that they've been dealing with for a week, but which you don't know about, is still unfixed. And they're getting in touch now. And maybe they've decided to phone instead of use the property management software. And they're annoyed. So when you get that annoyance across the phone, your first thought is, hang on a minute, but I didn't know about this. And then you're sort of irritated. Why are they annoyed with me? So that's where we pull back and we just say, okay, it's okay that they're annoyed. I'm just gonna let them be annoyed. I'm gonna listen. When they're telling me, rah, 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 this has happened, that's happened. The shower curtain has fallen down, or this is whatever. And why is nothing being done about this? And I say, and then the question is there anything else? Is there anything else? Is there anything else? So once they've got everything off their chest, then we can say, oh, sorry that the shower curtain's been fallen down. Actually, we didn't know about this. This is the first time that we've been advised. What we'll do is blah, 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 and blah, and we'll keep you updated. And so that one thing, listen, understand, respond, is the one thing why I think we get so many reviews. And that's one of the simple systems that we have. It's all based on that. Our number one value in that business is, or one of them is excellence, and yeah, so
That's a really great template. Listen, understand, and respond. That's brilliant to hear. Now, listening, understanding, and respond, has that had a great deal of influence into one of your other lanes, which is as a coach?
Yeah.
Many people listening to the show may not know that Stephanie is also a coach. Now, you've created a program called Blow Up Your Life. Was that as a result of what you learned through your property business in listening, understanding, and responding? Did you then decide to translate that into a different arena, or did that come about through another setting?
Yeah, it was kind of a bit of a lot of different things. But what happened, Afam, is we talked earlier about how much your thoughts are so powerful in creating the life either that you want or you don't want. And I found coaching in the last few years, and really started consciously changing my mind and saw my results ramping up. So the businesses became more successful, my relationships became better. I lost a lot of weight. That was a really big one for me. I mean, for many women, weight, I was speaking to somebody recently who's always been underweight or under what the average is, and has always felt self-conscious. But for the majority of women in this country, anyway, in the UK, it's being overweight. And for me, that was my experience of always feeling, I'm a clever person, why can't I work this out? I always said, would be okay for a while, then default back to overeating. And the coaching and the mind work really helped me to crack that. And I was able to lose, not even just get to my goal weight, even surpass my goal weight and find it easy, even at the age of now 50. And so I just thought, oh, I wish I'd known this years ago. And I wish I'd known everything that was available to me. Why did I wait so long, for example, to start the businesses? And that's why I wanted to do Blow Up Your Life, because for each woman, what blow up your life means is slightly different. So for me, that actually turned out to be to do with business, to do with health and weight loss, to do with relationships. But for other women, it might be not working. It might be looking after their family. They may be caring for elderly parents. They may want to do art. They might want to sing. But sometimes the conversation that many of us don't have is the conversation with ourselves. You know, really now that I've come to the age of 40, what is it that I want to create in my life now? Most people are not intentional there by actually having that conversation. And it is a tougher conversation to have, because your brain will immediately offer you, I don't know. Especially if you haven't thought about this a lot. And so it's got a question you need to keep asking, keep leaning into, make it a practice. And that's why some people do enjoy the process with Blow Up Your Life, of actually creating it with somebody else and having me actually see into you and helping you to bring out where you want to go and asking you a special framework of questions that highlight. And Afam, I actually do a free Ignite Your Spark call. So if anybody wants to just take the first step of the process and just begin to do it, and maybe then either continue on their own or they can continue with me, they can go to blowupyourlife.com and you can book an Ignite Your Spark call there.
That's great. And what we'll do here on the show is obviously all of Stephanie's contact details and access to her book and her programs will be within the show notes here. It's great to hear that, you know, you're also giving of your insight and wisdom to people through your coaching. But one thing that I really like that you've done is that you also give back to various communities through initiatives. And I think that's brilliant. One of them is supporting projects in Malawi and Zimbabwe to help women start businesses, which is wonderful. So what sort of things are you involved in that capacity?
Yeah, well, Afam, I've got to give credit to B1G1. It's called Buy One, Give One, and it's a website, b1g1.com. And through the website, as a business or as a private person, you can agree to give every month. So we give to the charities that you mentioned, the projects that are helping women in Malawi and Zimbabwe set up in business. We're also supporting children in Kenya to go to school, have the right uniform and equipment that they need to be able to go to school. And so we can choose projects from all around the world. We've chosen to choose projects in Africa. They didn't when we went there. But anyway, we love being able to do that because it's an easy way for us to be able to make that contribution, to be a game changer. And in the longer term, as we talked about earlier, all of these property assets that we're building up, we will leave in trust to help other people who struggle to find these beautiful, affordable homes, because sometimes there is racism in letting agencies and estate agencies, and it's not always, we don't always get the opportunities. And having a lovely home to live in is such a gift. So we want to make sure that we leave that to people after we're gone.
Wow, that's great. Stephanie, I've thoroughly enjoyed this time that you've shared with us on the show. Stephanie Taylor, who is able to believe bigger, be bolder, and be a game changer. And we've seen and heard the evidence of that. Thank you for your time today. Thank you for your wisdom. And thank you for joining me here on the show today.
Thanks, Afam. It's been a lovely, enjoyable